When the studio door opened, everyone turned. And the person who walked through that door made the entire studio cry. The cameras were rolling. Dr. Phil was mid-sentence. And then silence. Complete, absolute silence. 28-year-old Sarah Mitchell sat in the guest chair, tissues clutched in her trembling hands, talking about the mother she hadn't seen in 18 years. The abandonment. The unanswered questions. The hole in her heart that had never healed. I just want to know why. Sarah was saying, her voice breaking. Why wasn't I enough? Why did she leave and never come back? Dr. Phil leaned forward, that familiar look of concentrated empathy on his face. He'd done thousands of these conversations. Guided countless people through their deepest pain. But what was about to happen would shake even him. Nobody in that studio, not the crew, not the audience, not even Dr. Phil himself, knew what was about to walk through that door. Let's go back to how we got here. Sarah had contacted the show 3 months earlier. Her story was heartbreaking but not uncommon. At age 10, her mother Jennifer had left one morning for work and simply never came home. No call. No letter. No explanation. Sarah's father had raised her alone, doing his best, but the wound of maternal abandonment had defined Sarah's entire adult life. Trust issues. Failed relationships. An inability to believe anyone would stay. At 28, Sarah was successful in her career but broken in her heart. I need closure, she'd written in her application to the show. I need Dr. Phil to help me understand why a mother walks away from her daughter and never looks back. The producers had done their homework. They tracked down Jennifer Mitchell, now Jennifer Rhodes, living in Oregon. She'd remarried. Had another daughter. Built a new life. When they contacted her, she'd broken down crying. I think about Sarah every single day, Jennifer had told them over the phone. But I was so ashamed. I had severe postpartum depression that went untreated for years. I was drowning. I thought leaving was the kindest thing I could do. I thought she'd be better off without a broken mother. The producers had asked if she'd be willing to appear on the show. Jennifer had hesitated for only a moment before saying yes. But there was a condition: Sarah couldn't know. It had to be a surprise. Jennifer was terrified that if Sarah knew in advance, she'd refuse to see her. Dr. Phil had agreed to the plan, though he rarely did surprise reunions. Too unpredictable. Too much could go wrong. But something about Sarah's letter had gotten to him. And Jennifer's remorse felt genuine. So they'd set it up. Sarah thought she was coming for therapy. Jennifer thought she was coming for redemption. Neither knew how it would actually unfold. The taping had started normally. Sarah had walked onto the stage to warm applause. Dr. Phil had welcomed her, established rapport, begun exploring her story. Sarah was articulate, vulnerable, raw. The audience was already reaching for tissues. Tell me about the last day you saw your mother, Dr. Phil had asked. Sarah closed her eyes. It was a Tuesday morning. I was 10. She made me breakfast, scrambled eggs. She kissed my forehead. She said, I love you, sweet girl. And then she left. And I never saw her again. A sound escaped from somewhere off stage. A small, choked sob. The cameras didn't catch it. But Dr. Phil's eyes flickered briefly toward the wings. He knew. In that moment, he knew Jennifer was already there, listening. Sarah, Dr. Phil continued carefully. If your mother walked through that door right now, what would you say to her? Sarah shook her head. She won't. She's had 18 years to walk through a door. She's made it clear she doesn't want to. But if she did, Dr. Phil pressed. What would you need her to hear? Sarah's face crumpled. I'd ask her why I wasn't worth staying for. Why every day of my life, I've wondered what I did wrong. Why? Stop the tape. Dr. Phil held up his hand. The cameras kept rolling, but everyone froze. He stood up from his chair and walked to the edge of the stage. The audience went completely silent. This was the pattern interrupt. The moment where Dr. Phil broke protocol. Sarah, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. And you need to prepare yourself, because your life is about to change. Sarah looked confused, then frightened. What? What's wrong? Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil turned toward the wings and nodded. For a long moment, nothing happened. The studio held its collective breath. Then the door opened. A woman in her late 40s stepped onto the stage. Dark hair. Sarah's eyes. Trembling hands. Jennifer. Time stopped. Sarah stared. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Her face went through a dozen emotions in seconds: confusion, recognition, disbelief, anger, hope, devastation. Mom? The word came out as a whisper, barely audible. Jennifer took one step forward. Then another. Tears were streaming down her face. Sarah. My baby. My Sarah. The studio erupted. Not in applause, in collective sobbing. Crew members were crying. Audience members were holding each other. Even the camera operators were shaking. Sarah stood up on shaking legs. She looked at Dr. Phil, as if seeking permission or confirmation that this was real. He nodded gently, tears in his own eyes. She's here, he said quietly. She's really here. What happened next would be replayed millions of times. Sarah took one step toward her mother. Then stopped. Her face twisted with pain and longing and rage all at once. Why? She screamed. Why? Jennifer sobbed. I was sick, baby. I was so sick. I had this darkness inside me and I thought you'd be better without me. I thought I was poisoning your life. I was wrong. I was so wrong. You left me. Sarah's voice broke. You left me and I spent every day thinking I did something wrong. That I wasn't good enough. That I wasn't worth loving. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Jennifer reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a worn envelope. It was yellowed with age, the edges soft from years of handling. I wrote you a letter, she said, voice shaking. The day after I left. I've carried it with me every single day for 18 years. I never sent it because I thought I didn't deserve to. But you need to read it. You need to know. She held out the envelope. Sarah stared at it like it might burn her. Dr. Phil stepped forward. Sarah, you don't have to read it now. But I think you should take it. Whatever happens next, you deserve to hear your mother's truth. Sarah's hand slowly reached out. Her fingers touched the envelope. And something broke inside her. She collapsed into her mother's arms. The sound that came from both of them was primal. 18 years of grief and longing and love compressed into a single moment. They held each other and wept, and the studio wept with them. Dr. Phil stepped back, giving them space. This was their moment. He just facilitated it. This was what he did at his best, created the conditions for healing to begin. After several minutes, Sarah pulled back slightly. Her face was red and swollen, but there was something different in her eyes. A tiny spark of something that might, eventually, become hope. I need to understand, she said. Everything. All of it. Jennifer nodded. I'll tell you everything. I owe you that. I owe you so much more than that. Dr. Phil gestured to the chairs. Sit. Both of you. Let's start the real conversation. They sat, hands still clasped together. The audience was silent, reverent. This was church. This was sacred. Jennifer. Dr. Phil began, his voice gentle but firm. Talk to me about what happened. Not the surface story. The real story. Jennifer took a shaking breath. After Sarah was born, something broke in me. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I'd look at this perfect, beautiful baby and feel nothing. Just this crushing weight. This voice in my head telling me I was going to hurt her somehow. That I was defective. Dangerous. Sarah's grip tightened on her mother's hand. I didn't know it was postpartum depression. I thought I was just a bad mother. A broken person. I started having these thoughts, intrusive thoughts about what if I did something terrible by accident? What if I dropped her? What if I forgot her somewhere? The thoughts were so loud, so constant, I couldn't function. Dr. Phil paused mid-sentence. The studio went completely silent. Did you ask for help? He asked quietly. Jennifer shook her head. I was ashamed. I thought if I told anyone, they'd take Sarah away. So I just kept going, kept pretending, kept drowning. And then one day, I woke up and I couldn't do it anymore. I looked at Sarah at breakfast, and all I could think was she deserves better than this broken person. So I left. I thought I was saving her. Sarah was crying silently. You didn't save me. You destroyed me. I know, Jennifer whispered. I know I did. And I've lived with that knowledge every single day. I've watched you from a distance, social media, asking mutual friends. I've celebrated every achievement, and mourned every hurt, and hated myself for not being there. I was a coward, Sarah. I was sick and I was a coward, and I let my shame keep me away. Dr. Phil leaned forward. Sarah, I want you to hear something important. Your mother's mental illness was not your fault. Her leaving was not your fault. You were a child. You did nothing wrong. Do you hear me? Sarah nodded, but the tears kept coming. And Jennifer. Dr. Phil continued, turning to the mother. Your illness was real. Your suffering was real. But your daughter's suffering was also real. And 18 years is a long time to let shame win. Why now? Why did you finally agree to come? Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. Jennifer looked directly at Sarah. Because my younger daughter, your half-sister, she's 9 now. And last month, she asked me about you. She said, Mom, why don't I have a big sister? And I realized I was about to do the same thing to her that I did to you. Let fear and shame steal something precious. I can't give you back those 18 years. But I can try to give you a future. If you'll let me. Dr. Phil stood up. He walked over to his desk and picked up a small card. He returned and handed it to Jennifer. This is the contact information for a trauma-specialized family therapist I work with. If both of you are willing, I'm going to personally make sure you get into treatment together. This isn't going to be fixed today, or next week, or next month. This is going to be hard, painful work. But it's possible. Healing is possible. He turned to Sarah. The question is, are you willing to try? Sarah looked at the letter still clutched in her other hand. She looked at her mother's face, older and worn but unmistakably the face from her childhood memories. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't expect forgiveness, Jennifer replied. I just want a chance to show up. To do the work. To be the mother I should have been 18 years ago. Sarah took a long, shaking breath. Then she nodded. Okay. We can try. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The audience rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous, mixed with tears and cheers. Dr. Phil allowed himself a small smile. This was why he did this work. These moments. These impossibly hard, impossibly beautiful moments. As the camera stopped rolling, Dr. Phil did something he rarely does. He invited both women into his private office backstage. Just the three of them. No cameras. No audience. I want to give you both something, he said, handing them each a bracelet. Simple silver bands with an inscription. One day at a time. Healing isn't linear, he told them. There will be setbacks. Days when it feels impossible. But if you both commit to showing up, one day at a time, you might be surprised what becomes possible. Sarah slipped the bracelet on her wrist. So did Jennifer. Thank you, Sarah said, and for the first time, her voice held something other than pain. It held possibility. 6 months later, Sarah and Jennifer appeared in a follow-up episode. They'd done the therapy. The hard conversations. The ugly crying sessions. Sarah had read the letter, all 20 pages of it, detailing Jennifer's mental state, her regrets, her love that never disappeared even when she did. They weren't perfect. There was still tension, still hurt, still work to do. But Sarah's younger half-sister had met her. Jennifer had attended Sarah's birthday dinner. They were building something. Slowly. Carefully. One day at a time. Dr. Phil gave us the gift of a doorway, Sarah said in that follow-up episode. We had to choose to walk through it. But he opened it. And I'm grateful. Every single day, even the hard ones, I'm grateful. The episode became one of the most watched in Dr. Phil history. It was shared millions of times. Mental health organizations used it in training. Therapists showed it to clients. It sparked national conversations about postpartum depression, maternal mental health, and the long-term impacts of parental abandonment. But more than that, it sparked hope. Thousands of people reached out to estranged family members. Support groups formed. Healing began in living rooms across the country. Because sometimes, all it takes is someone opening a door. And someone else being brave enough to walk through it. Dr. Phil had done this work for decades. He'd seen everything. But even he admitted that this episode stayed with him. The envelope. The bracelets. The moment when that door opened and changed everything. This is why I do what I do, he said in an interview later. Not for the ratings or the recognition. For these moments. When someone's life shifts. When healing begins. When a door that's been closed for 18 years finally opens, and love, complicated, messy, imperfect love, walks through. The letter Jennifer had carried for 18 years now sat in a frame in Sarah's apartment. She didn't need to read it anymore. She knew what it said. But it reminded her that even in the darkest times, even when people leave, love can remain. Broken. Dormant. But there. And sometimes, with help, with courage, with someone like Dr. Phil creating the space for truth, that love can find its way home. The bracelets? Both women still wear them. Every single day. One day at a time. Because that's all healing is. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One door at a time. And on that day in that studio, when that door opened, everything changed.